let's talk about the mistake that everyone makes, including you, because of their ego. Welcome back to another episode of the 4Q podcast. My name is Sheena Shuey, and if you're new here, I am a burnout therapist and business mentor. My superpower is I help female leaders, entrepreneurs, high achievers, business women with both their mindset and their business strategy. Now, and if you're a returning listener, welcome back. I'm so proud of you. Look at you go, working on your personal development, taking the time out to enhance and grow yourself. I say this to you often, but it's worth reminding you that not everyone does this. Not everyone tries to grow themselves. Not everyone will take the lessons that you learned today and implement them and reflect on them. Because again, you're a high achiever. You're a go-getter. You're a doer. And that makes you part of the top % of crazy people out there. The ones who are crazy enough to think that they can change their lives and change the world are the ones that do. You're not living your life by default like everyone else. And so you're really brave for that. So I already know that you're different from the rest if you're here right now listening to a podcast like this. So good on you. All right. Now let's get into the mistake that everybody makes because of their ego. And the mistake is holding on to things because you've over-invested and you don't want to let go. Now, whether you're a spiritual person, a psychological person, it doesn't matter. There is a thing called ego death, and everybody uses their own words and own terminology and own definitions. So for me, what I'm going to define an ego death is when everything that is fueling your ego gets taken from you. So you have to ask yourself who you really are. Now, to understand what is dying, the ego death, you must understand what an ego is, because we hear this word thrown around a lot. So let's go back in time for a minute to Sigmund Freud. So Freud was the founder of psychology and talk therapies. Now, for all his flaws, he actually had some good points. And I'm not going to get into the good and the bad and the pros and the cons of Freud, but he did coin the term the ego. So he talked about the id being your unconscious, instinctual, sort of hidden shadow. And Carl Jung, who was Freud's sort of sidekick, developed a lot more of the shadow work, the collective consciousness, and him and Freud, they fought on things, but they agreed on some things, but they both believed in the shadow. And the shadow is your instinctual drivers. So, we've all had this situation, or not all of us, but some of us, where maybe we've made a poor decision because of our instinctual drives. For example, maybe someone picks a not so good partner, but they're really good in bed. Or maybe there's a great sex drive. And so you're sexually compatible, your instinct for sex and procreation is activated with this person. But logically, they're not good for you. So that's the id. That's an example of the id. It's sort of hiding around, lurking around your shadow. So it's unconscious. You've also got your super ego on the other side. So the id often is referred to as the devil. So you know how you, like in old cartoons, you used to have the devil in the shoulder and the angel on the shoulder. And so, you would see like Tom or Jerry or, I don't know, these old school Warner Brothers cartoons where the devil on one shoulder was saying, do this. And then the angel was saying, don't do that. That's not right. That's not who we are. So the super ego is the, again, unconscious but sort of conscious side of you. I believe we can get more conscious about this, but this is like the righteous side of you. This is the part of you that feels like we know what is right, what is wrong, what we should be working on. So, it's your morality. And again, it's a lot of the internalized ideas sometimes about what's right, what's wrong. It's righteousness. It's, your like the bigger things. And I don't want to get too much into the super ego because a lot of these concepts have changed and evolved over time. But what I want to get at is the ego is in the middle. So the ego is almost your reality. So we're thinking about the id, which is the dark side, the shadow. You've got your angel side, the super ego, which is telling you what's right, what's wrong, what you should do, what you've internalized. So you've got the devil and angel, and then your ego is the person in the middle. The ego is often representative of what you construct your reality to be. Now, this is a mistake we all make because in our society, we're not as spiritual, religious. We don't delve into fantasy as much, particularly in the West. So in Western cultures like Australia, Canada, England, the US, all of that, Western Europe, we're very scientific nowadays. We're very fact-based, scientific, all of that. And that's not a bad thing. Science has evolved us in many ways. And my practice at Savasana Collective, Holistic Psychology and Business Mentorship, we balance the East and West. We balance this Eastern philosophy and meditation and chi energy and chakras and spirituality with the science that backs it, right? The evidence. But in the West, we're very fact-based, science-based, but we're also very status-based. We base someone's worth on what we can see. Facts. Are you rich or wealthy, or are you not? Are you skinny and fit? Are you not? Are you a mum? Are you a wife? Are you in a relationship? Do you have a good job? What's your role in the company? Do you, what kind of car do you drive? What kind of house do you live in? What suburb do you live in? How many kids do you have? Are your kids performing well? Like, those are the things that we think are reality because it makes sense. They're right in front of us. We're told those things are important. We're conditioned to think those things are important. Everything we do in life, in a Western culture is around those things. And so we build an ego of an identity, a definition of who we are by these external things that we see. Do I drive a good car? Do I have a good house? Do I have a good job? How much money am I making? How do I look physically? Am I fit? These status-based things which leave us incredibly vulnerable. So a lot of people will get identity from, I'm a business owner, I'm a 7-figure business owner, this kind of thing. A lot of women will get identity from being a mother or a wife. I'm a wifey. I've seen people have shirts say wifey. People have number plates say wifey. Or, they feel like their identity is through motherhood of, I want to be the mum that I didn't have. So I'm going to show up to every game. I'm going to do everything. I'm going to be my kid's favorite person. Now, what happens when you get identity from external things? You're constantly seeking validation externally. So you're waiting for people to go, good on you, or like cheer you on for those external characteristics, which are just status-based, right? Ego-driven. And then when your whole identity is that, what happens when it gets taken away? And I've talked about this before. When you over-identify with your roles, which are your ego. So when someone asks you who you are, you describe yourself, oh, well, I'm a business owner and I'm a mum and I'm a wife and I'm a this and I'm a that. If those things get taken away from you, you're incredibly vulnerable if that's what you think your identity is. If that's who you think you are, the titles, if you don't know who you are outside of that, you're in a danger zone. So what do I mean by that? I just want to give a bit of a morbid example. So apologies, but this is just the example that sometimes we use in presentations, etc. But 2 women, okay? Both women lose a child. One woman, motherhood was part of who she was, but she was also, she knows that she had all these other things going on in her life, and she still, she had other roles other than a mother. Maybe she was a wife. Maybe she was a mum to another child. Maybe she was a business owner. Maybe she was a really good friend, a daughter, an auntie. Maybe, she had other things going on in her life, but also she knew that she was a good person, that she lived within her values. She had spiritual beliefs. So she had a picture bigger than her of everything happens for a reason, or which is so annoying and cliche to hear, but some people it really helps them. Having some way of making sense of the world, whether you believe in someone's beliefs or not, is incredibly valuable, which is why it's the key thing that a lot of people miss, the spiritual aspect of making sense of things. So she's able to sort of go, I don't understand how this fits right now, but I know it's part of my story. It makes sense. She's got bigger picture things, and her whole world wasn't wrapped up in, and her whole ego and her whole identity and her whole reality wasn't, I'm a mum. Now, woman number 2, maybe she has all those things, but her identity is, I'm a mum. Everything I do is because I'm a mum. Everything I am is about being a mum. I get all my identity through being a mum. If she loses a child, or again, you don't even have to go that far in this example, if something happens to the child, or, that child doesn't perform to the level that both mums wanted. Maybe they don't want to go to university. Maybe they don't want to continue sport, even though they're really good at it. That mum cannot handle the loss, cannot handle if the child stops talking to her, cannot handle if something happens to the child. She loses herself completely because her whole identity is through that. Now, that's a bit of a morbid example, but again, if you over-identify with your roles, I'm a wife, what happens when that person wants to divorce you? You're crushed. Versus that's just one of 10 different things of who I am. I'm someone with good morals. I understand this. I understand that. I make sense of this. There's always something else for me. You can't have everything wrapped up in one. And a lot of the time that happens, we feed into the ego of the business or the house or the suburb or the kids or whatever, is because we've over-invested in it. So a lot of people will stay in a relationship, stay in a career, stay in a business that is crushing them or is not working or doesn't feel loving or fun or whatever anymore because they over-invested. So again, let's say you're in a relationship and you've invested time in this relationship, energy, love, money. It's so much harder to leave it because a lot of people will associate, I've wasted time, money, love, energy because I feel like I've over-invested in this and I didn't invest in myself or I didn't invest in other areas. And It's almost like I've invested so much I can't let go. Same thing with a business that's not working. A lot of people, the business is not working. It is just not working. It's not going the way you want it. It's not going the direction you want it. It's not lighting you up. It's not making you feel good. And yet, because you've invested time, money, energy, you've created so much for it, your ego won't let you let it go. That's your reality. That's who I am. Who am I without that business? Who am I without that relationship and that reflection back on me? Oh, this beautiful relationship. Oh, this successful business. Same with a career. So I've shared on the podcast before about a GP that I know a doctor, 10 years studying the one thing, sacrifice, time, money, energy, relationships, fun, like the amount of sacrifice that goes into actually becoming a doctor is huge. Only to realize they hate that career, they didn't want to do it, and they've now pivoted. And yes, they still use the skills and the knowledge and everything, but they're just not a doctor, and they'd never want to be. They were able to let go of the ego of the title of doctor, let go of the ego of all, like the identity, the reflection, the thing, like they know who they are outside of that. They have a whole identity, a whole way of being that is outside of that role of doctor that they don't over-identify. So, but again, a lot of people won't do that. Oh my gosh, I've studied this for 10 years and this is my career path now. What a waste of money, time and effort that would have been. And they would have continued on for another 10, 20, 30 years in a career they don't like because they feel like, what was the point in all of that sacrifice? And there is so much strength in learning to let go. But how do you know? How do you know if you're overinvested and it's time to let go? So an excellent exercise for this, and again, it's worth repeating and getting in your mind, is we do this in corporate sometimes when things are just clunky and not working, or when a system is just not coming together. And again, this comes from philosophy as well, of if I had to start again and I just had to start from scratch and everything was taken away from me, everything I know it was taken away from me, would I build it the same way again? Would I do things the exact same or would I do things differently? So would I choose this same career? Would I choose this same partner? Would I choose this same place to live? Would I choose, XYZ, the business? Would I go in a different business? Would I not offer this service in my business? Would I not do this in my career? What would be the things that you would let go of and do completely differently if you could start again and start from scratch? And why don't you go do that? There's a really good chance that if you're listening to this podcast right now, you are young, fit, active, and have so much time on your hands. But sometimes we tell ourselves that, I've chosen this path, or you trick your ego. I've overinvested. You don't want to let go because your ego's like, but this is our reality and we did time and energy and space and sacrifice. We don't want to let go. Ego death is incredibly painful. As someone who's gone through it and is going through it, it is painful and it is hard and it is scary because you've got to ask yourself, who am I outside of all of that? Am I a good person? And people love me, respect me? How do I hold myself without those titles? What if I never get those titles again? Am I still amazing and awesome? Am I still proud of myself? Am I all the things? Am I okay with respecting myself when other people won't? Or do I value other people's respect over my own self-respect? There are incredible amount of questions that come up from this. But what I really want you to think about in your life is what feels off, even if you don't know why, because sometimes things can feel off and it's just for a phase or a reason. Sometimes things can feel off because you're overinvested, but your ego doesn't want to let go. It's scary and hard to let go. Unfamiliar territory is scary and hard, and you don't know what's coming next. Sometimes we stay in a familiar hell rather than an unfamiliar heaven. I'll say that again, just in case you didn't catch it. Sometimes we will stay in a familiar hell rather than choose an unfamiliar heaven. We feel safe in what's familiar sometimes. This is why people who grow up in certain circumstances will repeat them in their relationships. You had a narcissistic parent, you might have a narcissistic partner. You had an emotionally unavailable parent, you have an emotionally unavailable partner. Even though it's hell, it feels familiar. So, reflect on this in your life. What's feeling off? What's not working? What areas that if you started from scratch, if you started your whole life from scratch, would you be living where you are right now? Or would you actually choose to try and live in the country or the city or the beach? And of course, we can't always just drop everything and do that, but how can we make that more of a reality for us? Are you even bothering to try and work towards that? Would you choose your current career and business if you started again? If it was not making you money, or if someone said every single job and every single business makes the same amount of money, regardless of what you choose, would you choose yours now? Or something else? And if it is something else, why are you not going after that? What's the fear? What is your ego holding on to? Do you know yourself outside of all of that? And again, if you don't know, our Tranquil Trailblazer membership is coming, where we go into core values. We go into your sense of self and who you are. Because I don't care if you've never had a business or if you have a 7-figure business. In this membership that is coming in a couple of weeks at the time of this recording, or if you're listening to this recording after May 2024, it's here. Get in. What are you doing? But if you're listening this in April of 2024 at the time of this recording, it is almost here. And I don't care if you never want to start a business and you just want personal development. In that Tranquil Trailblazers, we get you thinking about deep stuff, because the whole direction of your business, your career, your employees, your staff, your whatever you want to do in life, everything you do outside of work, who you are, how you show up for yourself, how you show up for your partners, your friends, your kids, your loved ones, comes back to who you are. Comes back to your balance between ego, id, and superego. Comes back to your core values. What is it that you value in life, and how do you act accordingly? What is the moral standard that tells you that you are successful and wealthy and joyful in life? Tranquil Trailblazers is about living your best life so you can have that tranquillo, that tranquility, but trailblazing the way, because when you lead, we all succeed. When you let go of the conditioning, other people see you and follow you. However small, however big, what you do makes an impact to the people that you love and around you, which makes you a trailblazer. I love you, beautiful soul. I'm sending so much love to you because I know that I've probably called you out a little bit. And that's hard. I've just had to let go of every single little shred of ego I had left. And I had to make moves I didn't want to make. Had to let go of things I was forced to let go of. I didn't want to. The universe was like, hey, this isn't good for you, and you're clearly not going to let it go on your own, so I'm going to remove it for you. And it sucked. A big fat one. It did not feel good. But I can see the other side now. Rainbows are here. I actually saw 3 rainbows today, which is why I'm saying that. Anyway, I know this is hard. I know I called you out, which is why I'm sending you so much love. And I know that sometimes you don't want to see this for yourself. You don't want to hear this. You don't want to learn from this, but you will. The seed is planted. When it is planted, it cannot be unplanted. unless you get in there and go, no, not listening, not unplanting the seed. But you will grow from this. And it'll all make sense of why you had to let this go now for something even better. You got to have the faith that something even better, grander, something that is more aligned for you is coming. Because without that faith, you cannot let go of the ego, ever. And the ego doesn't serve anyone but the darker side of you. All right, beautiful soul, have a wonderful day, wonderful week. Take care, be kind to yourself, and I will see you in the next episode of the 4Q podcast. Bye for now.